I would love to share with you a few songs from the playlist that I put together that I listened to while I am writing this novel. Based on those songs, what you think the vibe of this novel will be like. Hello friends, welcome to my new video. If you're new around here, I'm Annie and I love making content and sharing my journey in seeking a cozy life. If you've been around here for a bit, you will have heard me talk about this fantasy, romantasy novel I've been working on and how I have been promising a video giving some more detail. I already made a video talking about being a fantasy writer in general, but now it is finally time. I'm doing it. We are going to talk about the novel I'm working on. I am so excited to share, also a bit nervous and anxious because aside from a few friends and like my family, I haven't really told anybody much about it. So this is a big deal for me, but I'm excited. I've got my laptop ready. So let's just dive right in. Okay, so first off, I am going to be calling it Project Sunfire. And the reason I thought of coming up with a code name is because there is an author I follow on YouTube who does the same thing. And I thought, that's genius. I don't have to struggle with coming up with a title and use all that brain power trying to, what is this going to be called? And like all that stuff when it would probably change 5 million times anyway. So moving forward, and anytime I talk about it on this channel, my main fantasy novel, which I started in October 2020, will be called Project Sunfire. We already know that it is fantasy / romantasy, but if you haven't seen the video where I talk about being a fantasy writer, I'll just give you kind of like a quick overview. Definitely go check out that video if you want more in-depth information about like my why and all that. But very, very like TLDR, I have loved fantasy ever since I was a kid. I grew up on so many, like my parents were huge fantasy nerds, and that has been instilled in me since a young age. And when I was 11, my mom got me the first Lord of the Rings book and I tore through it in a week. And that was in large part why I began writing fantasy. And I haven't stopped. And as you can see with my bookshelf, I have a lot of fantasy on my bookshelf too. I definitely go more into my story in the other video, so I will be sure to link it in the description, and it'll also be linked in the cards at the end of the video. This novel actually began as a dream that I had in October of 2020. It was so vivid. I woke up and remembered all of it and jotted it down in my notes app on my phone. I was so enamored with the idea of it that I thought to myself, this needs to be a story. This needs to be a novel. And I won't go too into it, but the main thing that really like lit the fire under me to tell this story was the fact that I was the main character and I could turn into a dragon. I could shift form and become this massive, powerful dragon. And when I tell you the feeling of spreading my wings as this massive creature and taking flight, it was just like, if you're a Game of Thrones fan and you've watched when any of the big dragons are like taking off and they do that like really big, like, and that like kind of launch off, like that feeling, I experienced that in that dream and it was just mind-blowing. And I knew that I had to tell that story. I think that a big part of why I dreamt that, being able to shift into a dragon, was because I had the amazing privilege of growing up on Dragonheart with Dennis Quaid and Sean Connery. That was a favorite of me and my dad. And I have seen that film more times than I can count. We would watch it every time it came on TV, and then finally I bought the VHS. Now I have it on DVD. Like, I don't think I've been able to find it on Blu-ray, but anyway, I love that film. I always like, oh my God, it was my favorite. Pre-Lord of the Rings, Dragonheart was it. So I've always had this fascination with dragons. So when I had that dream, it was like, oh yeah, I'm kind of not surprised. And then thinking about writing a novel, not only about dragons or with dragons, because yes, those are fun. Fourth Wing is one of my favorite books. I wanted to capture the magic of that dream where I could shift into a dragon. And let me tell you, writing this novel with that has been pure magic. Okay, so we've established it's Romantasy. She can turn into a dragon, or shift into, that's the language that I use in the book, shift into dragon form. I bet you guys are wanting to know more about my main character and the overall premise. So I've got a little summary on my laptop. That's why I have it sitting here, keep me on track, because I could talk about my novel all day. We don't want to be here for 6 hours. Or maybe you do, I don't know. I would probably get tired of sitting here because my butt would go numb because I'm just sitting on the floor. But anyway, so my general premise blurb is MC, or main character. I don't really want to share her name yet, or like any of the names yet, just because this is all new to me, sharing this. So I'm just kind of taking it slow and only sharing what I feel like ready to share. So sorry about that, but MC, short for main character, is what I will be calling her. So MC was forced to leave her homeland and cannot return to her family, as there are dark forces which seek to destroy her. Because little does she know that she is something more. Something powerful enough to reshape reality itself. So she travels the world, collecting magics and friendships everywhere she goes. But a shadow has followed over her, another force no one knows about, one which seeks to wield her as a weapon for their own cause. So that is kind of the setup, because when the story starts, everything is already in motion. I don't like slow starts when I'm writing. I can do it like when I'm reading, like some of these books. If you watched my summer fantasy read recommendations video, some of these, like there was one in particular I talked about that had a slow start, but it was good. Like it got me quickly. But when I'm writing, I like to dive right into the action. So it's like turning on a channel and it's in the middle of an action scene in the movie that's playing, and you don't know what's going on, but you get drawn in because there's a lot happening and it's interesting, and then you find out as you go. So that's kind of how I tend to write, at least like the beginnings of my novels, because I want to get people right in the middle of everything and learning, and like that's how I build. And then we have character development and building, world building as you go. So you establish these things as you go. Anyway, so that is the overall premise and how the ball is rolling when you start the first chapter. So about my main character, she is well-traveled, well-read. She has an overwhelmingly strong sense of justice. And of course, she can shift form into a massive dragon. Like we're talking, let's see, Drogon is in Game of Thrones, if you're not familiar. That was Daenerys' largest dragon. I think I got that right. I always mix the three up. Drogon, I believe, is the biggest. She is a little bit bigger than Drogon in her dragon form. So if you Google photos of Daenerys Targaryen on Drogon, and you see how little she is sitting on his back. Of course, he's technically a wyvern. He's not quadrupedal or whatever they're called. He only has 2 back legs, and then the front are wings, which he kind of does this thing with. That's technically not a dragon, that's a wyvern, and I know it's supposed to be pronounced wyvern, but I prefer wyvern, so that's what I say. Anyway, so yeah, technically the dragons in Game of Thrones are wyverns, but who's splitting hairs? Definitely not me, and I'm not a pedant at all. She is a dragon with 4 feet. But for a size comparison, if you Google that and you see pictures, she's a little bit bigger than he is. So there you go. So massive. I wanted to share a little bit about what kind of inspired me. Obviously my dream, that set the stage for everything. My love of dragons, like all the things that I've already talked about. But there were 2 things that really, I pulled inspiration from 2 different fantasy stories. And I don't really want to go into either one in case you haven't experienced those stories yet for yourself. But we'll just say one of them was Arya Stark and her journey. But more of what her journey could be after the end of the show, because my question after everything wrapped up with the final season was, what if they did a TV show on where she's going next in her journey? That would be really cool. Of course they haven't, but I thought about that and I was like, honestly, that could be really cool for my novel. So I kind of like asked this question about what would happen with her after the end of the series, and then what I came up with, I used in my novel. And then the other part was one of my favorite, all-time favorite fantasy series, Shadow and Bone. I asked another what if question. There was a part where bad guy does something, things go a certain way, and obviously in my mind I'm like, but what if it had happened like this? And I kind of took that and put it into the world of my own story. Those are the only two that really come to mind at the moment. I'm sure there are other sources of inspiration, because any writer will tell you we pull inspo from everywhere, anywhere and everywhere. So, but anyway, those are the two noteworthy ones. And hopefully, if you haven't experienced either of those for yourself, hopefully you will, because they are both excellent fantasy stories. I also wanted to talk about my goal for this novel. Obviously, I want to get it traditionally published. I have self-published before, and I don't really want to do that again. I want to go the traditional route. I want to, work with a team of people who know what they're doing, because so many times in my journey, I have wanted to do something, so I have had to learn how to do and wear all the different hats. And while that has produced some great results and been incredible for my own growth, this novel, I don't want to do that. I want to focus on writing, on editing, on being what I am, which is the author of this novel. I don't want to do all the other things like I did. Like, it was a great experience, don't get me wrong. I'm glad I did it. Honestly, I'm glad I did it, because if I hadn't, I would have been considering it for this novel. But I want to focus on being what I'm supposed to be, which is the author. So if that makes sense. As far as word count, I'm thinking about 90 to 100K. Honestly, well, okay, it depends on how the story goes. Sometimes things take longer, sometimes they take less time to really like capture everything. So the word count might be, 4,000 spread out over 2 chapters or something like that, when I thought it would be like half a page. So I don't really know, but my goal is, we'll just say between 80 to 100K. And right now I believe I'm at 43,000. So I'm almost halfway there. Either way you slice it, I'm almost halfway through the novel. But yeah, so that's the length. And then the ultimate goal is to get this novel on the New York Times bestselling list. One day, this novel is going to be on the New York Times bestsellers list. I am determined, because I have been writing for almost 25 years. I have been in love with fantasy since I can remember. And I have such a heart for helping people through tough times with my stories. Whether it's needing to escape reality for a little bit, whether it's needing to be reminded that you're not the only one going through what you're going through, or maybe you just need a little kick in the butt to go out and do the great thing that you have been dreaming about doing. That's what I want my stories to do. I want my stories to be a catalyst for power in people's lives. And in order to do that and make a big impact, I need for a lot of people to read it. So there's that. Okay, so next I grabbed my phone because I would love to share with you a few songs from the playlist that I put together that I listened to while I am writing this novel. And it has a total of 48 songs, so over 3 hours of music on it. And basically what I do is anything that has the vibe of the characters or whatever, like I pop it on there. So I'm only going to share a few, and the first song would be Starglide featuring Cammie Robinson by Muzz. So this song would be like from her perspective. And then, oh my god, there are so many. The song that I've definitely listened to on repeat more than any other song while I have been writing this novel is Take Me Back to Eden by Sleep Token. I love that song so much, so much. It would be from the main, I say main, I guess, because I have quite a few male characters throughout the story. So the primary male character, love interest of my main character. Take Me Back to Eden would be from his perspective. So do with that what you will. And then, gosh, this is so hard to just pick 3. Okay, you know what? We're going to do a badass one. One where my main character is like, because she has her moments. We're going to do Tough by NFX. So, there you go. That's 3. Maybe I'll share more as I work on this novel and make videos about it, because if you didn't see the one where I talk about being a fantasy writer, I am going to be documenting, yes, I'm 43, whatever, 1,000 words into the novel already, and I haven't really documented, but moving forward, I want to document the journey from where I am now with a half-written manuscript to being published and everything that comes with that. So, all right, and that is it, my friends. I hope that you enjoyed this video. It was a lot of fun to share about my novel, and I don't know, it feels a little bit surreal to be making a video about a novel that I'm writing. And it also feels very special to be sharing it with you guys. So drop me a comment if you watched to the end, and let me know if you listened to the music tracks that I shared. I would love to know, based on those songs, what you think the vibe of this novel will be like. I would be very interested, so please share. As I mentioned, I will be sharing this entire journey on the YouTube channel, so if you don't want to miss future updates as I work on the novel, definitely consider subscribing. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you again for hanging out with me today. I'll see you in the next one. Stay cozy!